You have to assert yourself. So I was on TikTok today and I saw a video pop up in my algorithm where a young woman had stitched another young lady who made a TikTok talking about how she was frustrated after, receiving certain credentials and not being able to find any job. And the lady who stitched her video went into detail as far as, well, the issue isn't the person. The real issue is addressing the fact that it appears that the odds were stacked against certain people. And it made me think about the fact that we are typically taught to just focus on our work ethic when it comes to aligning ourselves with a particular occupation, a professional opportunity. But a lot of the time we don't find out about the fact that it takes so many other moving components in order to establish any kind of professional security for ourselves, whether it be we're interested in aligning ourselves with corporate America or we're interested in establishing our own entrepreneurial endeavor. But what made me want to make this analysis today, and I strongly encourage you guys to go to my TikTok and watch my most recent story where, I posted the young woman's TikTok video. But nevertheless, in this specific analysis, I want to address some of the unspoken rules regarding professionalism. And as you guys are familiar, or for those of you all who have been familiar with my YouTube channel, my TikTok, you all have been hearing me speak about these professional dynamics as a quote unquote lion's den, right? A symbolic lion's den, which is really a reference to the book that I like to, read from certain excerpts to provide some additional context. But nevertheless, what this video is going to be about today is addressing how you navigate professional spaces, whether it be corporate, whether it be an entrepreneurial endeavor. And one thing that you're going to have to get comfortable with doing is asserting yourself. Now, in the very beginning chapters, or like the first few pages of the book, in the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power, it actually differentiates two different forms of power. So you have a form of power that is a little bit more overt, for lack of better words. It's a little bit more dominant and assertive. And it also includes some kind of reinforcement system, right? You receive rewards for doing something that's asked of you by the leader, or you receive some kind of punishment if you don't complete certain tasks. However, there's a form of soft power that a lot of people may not be familiar with. And this is great for individuals. And I know I've been seeing you all's comments talking about the fact that, well, yeah, I don't necessarily want to jeopardize, my own integrity in order to become successful in a particular professional endeavor or within a particular lane. And I completely understand that. But I also want to properly equip you guys for what you will come up against. As you all hear me say on several different videos, just because you're not interested in playing the quote unquote game, it does not mean that other people are not playing a game against you. Hence why there's this symbolic phrase of you navigating professional realms and it feeling like you are in a symbolic lion's den. And the reason being that typically you are going to come up against people who don't necessarily lead with integrity. They don't necessarily lead with, work ethic or doing things on the up and up. Instead, they have more predatory personalities. So they lead with canceling out their competitors, or they strategically utilize some other colleagues and workers in order to get ahead and to do their dirty work on their behalf. So in order to prepare for these things, you have to implement a protective strategy. And if you do not feel comfortable with a more overt or aggressive form of power, there's this other concept of soft power where you lead by example. You show people through your expertise or your skill sets that you are someone who is worthy of leadership simply through your efficacy and your efficiency in a respective field and, a respective profession. But it's still a form of power, and that's what we're getting at. When you start navigating these spaces, you are navigating a system of power. Now, as I stated in the earlier part of this analysis, you have to get comfortable with asserting yourself. So if you're not someone who you prefer to dominate conversations, you can assert yourself through actions. And tying this into, the analysis where we're talking about how to tangibly move in these spaces, the first thing that you can do is understand how allegiances work in professional settings. So I'm going to read from an excerpt in the book, in the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power, particularly from the excerpt titled Allegiance to Appointment. that helps you all conceptualize this concept of professional allegiance. In particular, how others utilize allegiance and also how you can utilize this same principle for yourself, even if you don't have a ready-made foundation. And what I mean by that is you're not walking into these professional spaces with, established networks, or you may not necessarily have those relationships in the particular field that you're pursuing yet. But nevertheless, understanding this principle of allegiance will help you navigate these spaces in spite of maybe not having that ready-made network when you start working. And the excerpt reads, although we've been taught the American dream, that success comes from hard work, sacrifice, and starting from humble beginnings, meritocracy often has little to do with one's rise to affluence. Instead, it's about allegiance. Allegiance to individuals who already hold power and influence. In some cases, the allegiance is even more indirect. How many times have you witnessed or experienced someone who deserved a position lose out, only to see it go to a less qualified colleague? Often, this isn't about merit, it's about loyalty. So this excerpt in the book paints a realistic picture that many people are not prepared to come up against when they start navigating these professional spaces, especially if they didn't have anyone to tell them these things ahead of time. But the purpose of understanding this principle is so you won't become jaded or frustrated with an unspoken rule that has been embedded in so many professional systems for a significant amount of time. Now, how you can flip this allegiance principle to your benefit is understanding how to lead with favor for a favor. So if you do not have ready-made networks and connections in the field that you're pursuing, do not be discouraged. Instead, start to establish allegiances of your own, even if it means working under someone else. Now, I'm actually going to describe how you can do this by reading from another excerpt in the book titled Being Used as an Opportunity for Leverage, Indebt People to You. And the excerpt reads, in the previous book, Green Eyes, I discussed the power of generosity as a tool for leverage, particularly in the face of envious attacks. The same principle applies to systems of power, though for different reasons. When dealing with envy, generosity indebts others to you, creating a buffer against potential hostility. In power, however, indebting others serves a different purpose. It prepares you for inevitable shifts in dynamics. Power structures are inherently parasitic. Many seek to take without intending to reciprocate. One must acknowledge this reality without personal resentment to navigate these systems successfully. The key is to stay prepared rather than be caught off guard. Give without expecting immediate returns. Instead, view your generosity as accumulating credit. At the right moment, you can subtly remind others where their success has been nurtured. So an important takeaway in that excerpt is understanding that by default, most of these spaces are parasitic in nature. Also, when you have to remind people of the assistance that you provided them in the past, don't lead with resentment and don't become frustrated. Understand that the parasitic component comes with the territory. So even if people don't like you, they don't want to help you, or maybe they struggle with forgetfulness, they forget about all of the contributions you've helped them with, they can't erase your contributions. So even if someone wants to forget your contributions, they can't, as long as there's a track record, there's a trail, and there's documentation proving that you have contributed, just to refresh their memory. And understand we're not approaching this with, any kind of entitlement or resentment, as much as it's about reinforcing reciprocity. Because the fact of the matter is this, as long as you allow someone to take without giving back, they are going to do so. So if you need to assert yourself and assert some kind of reciprocity, do not hesitate to do so. Sometimes people just need a quick refresher. Now, the last thing that I want to prepare people for when they start to navigate these spaces is understanding that people will move the goalpost on you, or they will be reluctant to assist you if they view you in a high regard. If people have come to the conclusion, whether their conclusions are accurate or not, that you have leverage in a particular area, subconsciously, they will make things more difficult for you. If they are not healthy, if they're not balanced, or if they struggle with inferiority and superiority complexes, it is in your best interest. Now, you can do what you want, but if you realize just through the comments that people make, the way that they act towards you in comparison to maybe your colleagues, other people in that environment, If you realize that you were treated differently and it's not actually showing that you receive fair treatment, maybe some other people receive some better treatment than you, or maybe they're not, chastised as much as you are when you make a mistake versus, they can kind of get away without any real consequences. Release expectations that you will receive fair treatment. Now, you all who frequent my channel, you guys know that I'm big on if there are any signs of disrespect, do not hesitate to leave that particular environment. However, I am realistic, and that's why I make these analyses for people who may not have that luxury. So how you move around it is you simply release expectations that you will ever receive fair treatment. And the reason being that you do not want to establish anything on an unstable foundation. If you are trying to build upon an expectation where someone hasn't shown you consistency of fair treatment, but you're expecting it, it's going to be difficult for you to make any consistent progress because the foundation it's not strong. So understand that you're probably going to have to go above and beyond to document, dot your I's and cross your T's, and just understand the fact that you may not have alliances within that particular environment. So it's going to be in your best interest to make sure you cover all of your ends in the event, whether it happens or not, but just in case, in the event that people try to maybe wrongfully terminate you or put you in a professional bind. So whether that looks like you establishing some other outlets in a different department and you moving up the ladder in that way, or maybe you save up until you're able to branch out to a completely different opportunity with another organization or company. However this may look for you, the principle still applies as far as it requires you asserting yourself and not allowing people to assert their dominance, their control tactics, and also their power trips over you, because as long as they do so, you will never reach your fullest potential, which is exactly what it's designed to do. But if you all have watched my most recent analysis where I talked about confidence and how confidence is imperative because it protects you from the control tactics people try to assert over you to hinder you. Now, to describe further how confidence can be utilized in a professional capacity, I'm going to read from another excerpt that describes how to assert yourself so that people are not able to hinder your progress, stifle your potential, or sabotage you. Holding power means understanding that the throne can only be claimed through strength. Strength does not always mean exploiting others, but asserting oneself in adversity. A person who compromises their principles forfeits the crown. Those who are overly agreeable may avoid conflict, but in doing so, they also avoid growth and elevation. The saying, "no pain, no gain," holds in the realm of power dynamics. Leaders are forged in adversity. They can recover from setbacks and devise innovative solutions that earn them recognition. If someone shies away from conflict, others will lack confidence in their leadership. To be promoted, one must confront challenges head on, not shrink from them. All right, babes, that's all that I have for this analysis, talking about how important it is to assert yourself, especially in a professional context. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. But of course, I want to hear you all's comments, opinions, perspectives, and also your personal experiences in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next one, babes. Take care.